This broadcast is inappropriate for all ages, right here on hashtag WeAreMovieClub. It's time for Scary Movie Squad. Salutations, I'm Cameron, and I am conversation ready. Today we're here to talk about the movie of the week. It's a scary movie, that's Cloverfield. Yay! And this came from like shock and outrage that I hadn't actually done this, especially since we did Cloverfield Lane. Back in, I guess it was version 2 of this with Sid. So there's actually some good conversation going on there if you want to go watch that. We actually watched that one live in theaters. That was more of a what's new, but what's new? Yeah. Okay. Can't even make my own jokes anymore. So we're going to go dive right into it because this will be super short. I will say that I went in thinking this is a movie that I love, that I actually love found footage, because there are 3 movies that I can think of in particular that do it correctly. I would have said Cloverfield, Project Almanac, and Chronicle. I'm really kind of torn on Cloverfield after rewatching it this last time. I understand now why people don't like it. And I really think there's some major edits that could have happened that would have improved it. In particular, this whole beginning part that I'm going to talk to you about, and I'll point it out when we should have started the movie. We open on stupid text warnings, like it's a government file we're not supposed to be watching. Who gives a fuck? Start the movie. And then we open on a handheld camera view with date time stamp. It's obviously early morning. We get weird wandering about this apartment. And surprises a naked girl in bed. Bullshit. Don't give a fuck about any of this. Start the movie already. Then we're filming the grocery store for some reason. And the party. Now, given the movie, this was the natural progression to start the movie. We didn't need anything before this for the movie's purposes. So this is where you should have started. At the party, we've got like testimonials with bad camera work. People literally trying to figure out how to use the camera on film, which is awkward. And then HUD outs his friend for putting it off on him, but he ends up having a lot of fun with it, so he wants to keep the camera. Again, none of this really matters. The big takeaway from the party itself is that Rob likes Beth, and they're the two that banged at the beginning of the movie, but they're not boyfriend and girlfriend when the party happens. And Rob's about to go away, so that might be part of it. Whatever. Again, not really relevant to the actual story being told. And that HUD likes Marlena. Those are the big takeaways. And then I think Lily's married to Mark or whoever it is. Those are all our major players. The building ends up shaking. On the news, there's a tanker that capsizes in the harbor. There's some explosion in the difference, in the distance, not the difference. And I don't remember if they go to the roof or just they look out the window, but it's like this huge explosion way up high. And so if you watch the explosion happen, it manages to shoot debris like super high, like in a very firework fashion. So that the severity of that happening in New York is insane. It's not quite 9/11. Fuck it. It is 9/11 severity on scale, but nobody sees these things, so they don't know how to process it. If tops of your skyscrapers start exploding in your city, get the fuck out. Evacuate first, feel stupid later, when it's false. But they managed to run out to the streets for some reason. And like one of the first things that happened, and we're amping up the action right away. And to me, this is where the movie should have started. It's like, oh, hey, we're at a party. There's an explosion. Like that should have been the first 5 minutes of the movie, and then they run out on the street, and the movie actually starts. The Statue of Liberty's head bounces down the street, so I'm not sure why that was the case. But if they're on Manhattan, the Statue of Liberty is out on its island in the harbor, so sure, it makes sense if the monster starts out there that it would attack the next big monster it sees first, and by beheading it, I guess that makes sense. But they end up hiding in a store, and there's all this dust and clouds and stuff outside, and there's a bunch of people that are like stunned walking by. Really reminded me of The Mist, which is why we're gonna watch that next week. Like literally, it was like, that's a really good idea. Let's do that. And I'm short on ideas for Scary Movie Squad as it is, so we may switch it up and end up doing like what's new for a while or something, but we'll see. What's new? Damn it! I'm gonna figure this out. I just need another way to do older movies as well as keep up with new stuff. But on the street, they end up finding Marlena, Lizzie Kaplan, because she managed to run away pretty early, or she left the party just after Beth did, but not quite before, or maybe just before they did. Medics are helping people. Police are directing people to the bridge to escape Manhattan. Like, I say the city in my notes, but it's really, they're trying to take the Brooklyn Bridge from, I think it's the Brooklyn Bridge from Manhattan to Brooklyn. And of course the monster started in the harbor, so it's still out in the water. So it manages to land its tail on the bridge. I'm going to shortcut a lot of this shit because Jason was the husband and Rob's brother. But it manages to put its tail through the bridge, causing the bridge to collapse while there's all these cars and people on it. So of course people are running for their lives at this point. Let's just go ahead and assume that the bridge, the island's kind of locked down at this point. There's not ways to drive off of Manhattan. They end up regrouping. They visit an electronics store so Rob can get a cell phone battery for his phone, which isn't going to exist. The best you're going to be able to do is get like or steal somebody's active juice box. My Google one, I think, is charging up. Is it done yet? Nope. And then hook that up to your phone. You're not going to get a fresh phone battery from an electronics store. Ridiculous. And then Rob kind of decides he has to go for Beth now. And they're all trying to talk him out of it. Everyone is left alive. But then Lily kind of like sees what's happening and goes, we're going to go with you. If we can't talk you out of it, I'm going to go with you. And so HUD and Marlena kind of follow because they don't want to be on their own. Or I guess, I don't know, maybe Marlena doesn't want HUD to try to bang her in the middle of all this. But as they're kind of running out on the street to go one way or the other, the military suddenly, it's really like they weren't paying attention to anything, because the monster and the military both managed to sneak up on them. And granted, the monster's far away, and the military are rolling up, but it takes a while for them. It has to take a while for them to get there. They didn't just round the corner in formation like that. And the monster's actively destroying buildings, so it's really kind of odd that they're surprised by any of this. But like, military starts engaging, like shooting missiles, small arms fire, which isn't going to do shit. A couple 50 cals that might actually do something. And they run down to the subway to regroup again. Decide that they finally come up with a plan to walk the tracks to get where they need to go. I did leave out a part in the electronics store. The news report shows things falling off of the monster. It's very unclear why any of that is happening. Just another thing for people to deal with, really. It could have been anything from like, those are its antibodies, they're symbiotic parasites. It could be that he's being used as a drop ship, and that like those are essentially soldiers or attack dogs that are being loosed from the carrier ship, which is the monster, the big Cloverfield monster. Let's see. So and that comes important here when they're in the tunnel, and literally I started playing $1 Million Butt for this, cause it's like $1 Million Butt, you gotta walk through this tunnel, and I don't think I'd actually want to, but what a great way to die if I'm going to, and if I live I get $1 million, so why not? But they see the rats running past them, and honestly that means that you run. You ever see animals stampeding? They're running from something. You've seen Jurassic Park with the Gallimimus. The rats are the same thing. They're all running en masse away from something. You should get away from it too. Unless it's just a dog that you like eating rats left and right. Because there's dogs that are trained to do that. But they start looking around with the camera, turn on the night vision, and apparently there's the biters, is what I'm going to call them. And they're walking on the ceiling too, which makes me kind of interested on like how the rats figured out to run away. But they finally start fighting these biter things, and they run away. And Marlene is the one that actually gets like bit trying to save HUD, and they have a nice little moment over that. But they finally make it out, minus the bite, and they get to a mall. I don't know what mall in Manhattan is connected to the subway station that closely, but the military, it's apparently big enough for the military to set up in, and they've got like a science lab going where they're examining these things. There's medical help going on for people that have been attacked, and there's a operation space there, and the priority of what happens in the movie is not what would happen if they come across you in their base of operations. They probably don't have time to secure people properly, especially just civilians when it's an alien threat. So I understand not taking them into custody, but at the same time, the primary thing, especially what's going on, is like, do you have injuries? What are your injuries? Okay, it's this. We've got to get them to a medic now because alien infection is a bitch. It's been a center for several different movies, including War of the World. That one was in reverse, but let's see. Alright. But yeah, eventually Marlena kind of speaks up. She says, I don't feel so good. And then she's bleeding from the eyes, which is always bad. Never, your eyes aren't supposed to do that. Don't let it do that. Everyone freaks out and, we've got a bite! They drag her away. And then, from what I can tell, is they put her in a tent and she explodes. So she's gone. It's like such an abrupt way to lose somebody. The rest end up being given the option to run off and do their own thing. It's like, well, we can't be responsible for you, but fuck off, because we got other things to do. It's not worth your time in that scenario to fight people to rescue them. But on the street, they're reassured that they're with Rob, and at this point, it's Lily and HUD and Rob, and they don't have their significance to go for anymore, so live vicariously, you know? Let's see. But they finally get towards Beth's place, and Manhattan's not that big, so I don't know like why it took them so long to get sight of it, but it's leaning onto another building, which I'm not an architect, but I'm willing to bet it's not designed to hold up a second building. So there's every chance that the first building, the upright building, is going to go down at any moment. Plus, it's going to take down other things. But they get in the building. Of course, the elevators don't work, so they have to take the stairs. And they're climbing a fuckload of stairs because she lives on the 32nd floor of her building, which may or may not be the top floor. So they're going at least 32 floors up, plus some to get to the roof, so that they can go down to the 32nd floor on her crazy tilted building. It's an insane plan, what to do without rope climbing gear, which they definitely don't have. But they managed to do it. They find her, and she's been skewered on rebar through her shoulder. So the entire movie, she's been bleeding and crying and maybe trying to get help and or get herself off of there. Which would increase the bleeding, so she's pretty much dead before they got there. Once they get there, and they do manage to cleanly lift her off of the rebarb, she's going to start immediately bleeding out like crazy. But let's just pretend that they secured the wound correctly. You have a limited amount of time for that to be good. Her arm's probably going to be useless if they did it correctly. And so, like, they managed to drag her to the roof, drag her on into the other building, and then drag her back down the steps. She's going to bleed out and die from exhaustion at some point in that process. But the movie has them escape the building. They fight biters in the stairwell, which I'm unsure of, like, how the biters work. Maybe the biters did follow them up through the subway, but whatever. She's just so dead. There's no way she would ever live through this movie. It's a it's beyond a miracle. But they finally manage to get back to the street to run to the army, who happens to be right there, which is fine. The helicopter lifts off with Lily in it because they only had one more seat, so they send her because HUD's documenting it, and you can't separate the couple. The other three get in another chopper, and you get some great full shots of the monster, both like right before they get in, and then like as they're lifting off in the helicopter, and you can kind of look down on him. Whatever the reason, the monster manages to swat the first chopper down. Lily's gone, dead, and manages to get a hold of the second chopper, and they go down. Surprisingly, the three of them live. The pilots are dead. Whatever other crew members on there are dead, but they live because they're not trained to survive helicopter crashes. Jesus. And they land in Central Park, for as far as I can tell. I don't know if that's actually where they land, but it's a nice open area. Which I don't know why the monster would go there. I really don't. I don't know what his motivation is for what he's doing. Which would be nice to kind of be let in on. But they managed to pull each other from the wreckage. You see jets inbound, which normally means that like they're either doing strafe fire. Sorry, not strafe fire. But like they're doing fire runs, or they're dropping bombs, or they're prepping for a bomb run to make sure that it's clear to go through. There's lots of stuff that happens with that. I'm not very clear on all that, but and HUD goes back for the camera after they pull themselves out of the wreckage, which is on the ground the whole time. So it's like we got this really fucked up angle. So, but as he goes to pick it up, like he's pointing it at himself at the sky, and the monster comes into frame, and he kind of like repositions it into oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Because sure enough, not only did the monster sneak up on them when it's shaking the ground as it walks, really frustrated with that, but then it doesn't even swat or stomp him. It literally leans down to bite him. And then on top of that, we get some crazy fucked up footage, as we should. It actually works for the scenario. But then the camera lands and HUD's body falls. So it wasn't eating him. Or maybe he tasted gross. Who knows? It's CJ Miller. But then it fucks off. Like, it looks at them, eats their friend, and leaves. So they go for the camera, get it, and then manage to make it under a bridge. I guess, A, to hide from the monster sight. B, it becomes very obvious at this point that they're going to bomb the monster. Because, especially since there aren't any civilians in the area, it's the perfect place. And maybe that was the whole point, is that they were drawing the monster there to try to minimize collateral damage. I'm realizing I like this movie a lot more than the when it ended the other night. But she's basically in shock. They're hiding on the bridge. He gives a testimonial that's way too calm. He tries to encourage her to do it. She does not nail being calm at all. And then you hear explosions. And supposedly they die. They could have been buried under the rubble. And we had a discussion about this in the chat, because we watched this Rabbit/Camera Fridays, 9 p.m. Eastern. And it's very unclear what's safer to do. Because a lot of people were like, well, not under the bridge, because you're just going to get buried. But it's better than being getting the blast raw. If you're going to be burned alive by the blast, you want something to break that. So if you can stand behind a wall that's not going to crumble, that's ideal. And you could see that in Hiroshima Blast type things. It's like people tried to do that, and in certain points closer to the blast, it wasn't enough because the blast ended up wrapping around stuff and got them that way. But as you got farther away, it actually saved some people's lives, but the radiation got them. And then even farther away, like that may have been what saved some people. So it's definitely a fact. I'm not just making that up. So I honestly believe it's better to be under the bridge, but you're going to expect it to collapse on you. So if you can do anything to put yourself under something already so that somebody can dig you out later and you're not suffocating to death, that's better. Because you're in a no-win situation as it is. Make it as good as possible. And the very last scene is them cutting back to their stupid shit at the park. Their magical day before they boned. And you see, like in the background, a little meteor fall into the ocean, which I didn't need that. It got here somehow. The only thing was to point out that it definitely is an alien and not just Godzilla. But I think once the biters fell off it, I think that was enough evidence for me. And it has some shitty credit sequence. Got through that in just under 21 minutes. I'm happy with that. I don't think this movie takes a lot of discussion on its own. A lot of the discussion on this movie should be about either the aliens plot or whatever that we have no answers for in this movie whatsoever. That we get some answers in 10 Cloverfield Lane. And like, if you really want to make the stretch argument for A Quiet Place, great, go for it. But what the discussion really should be with this movie is like, is handheld an effective form of media or way to film media? Is it the right way to do it? And I want to be able to have that discussion more so with Hardcore Henry when we do that for Our Movie Club coming up, because that's going to happen within next month or two. Like, it's on the list, it's on the schedule, it's gonna be a thing. So stick around, come watch movies with us, have a good time, let's talk about movies. We usually have a pretty good time with ourselves. So until we see you next time, this has been Scary Movie Squad, right here on #WeAreMovieClub. If you want to see anything else we're up to, go ahead and click the annotations, and they'll take you to our other channels. Thanks for watching.